Alright, so you're trying to build a cage and you need to figure out how much material you need for all these bins. So when you're in here, you know you have a bunch of long stretches, but you got to make your bends through here. So once you figure out what kind of bend radius you want here, how do you know how much material you need for the bend? So once you've figured out what you want your bend radius to be, you got your bending dies and everything. Well, how do you figure out how much material you need? We're going to show you. It's hot out here. All right, so what we're going to start with is we need to know how much material this thing uses on a bend. So we're going to lay out this piece of tube. We're going to come in 4 inches. Then we're going to mark this every inch for about 18 inches. Now, depending on what angles you want to bend, whether it's 90s or 45s, whatever you're going to use the most of, I would just go in there and make a standard so you know how much material. It's not something you got to do every time. This is kind of a one and done thing. So I'm going to mark more than 18. I'm going to go out 24 inches. So I've came in 4 inches off the end of the tube. I usually try to bend ERW tubing with the seam on the inside, not the outside, so I don't split it. So trying to show this on your bending die, you got this leading edge of your die itself. You're going to want to put this 4-inch mark even with that edge. And it's kind of hard to see it up inside of there, but you line that mark up with that edge so that when it's all clamped in, that's going to be your bending tangency right there. Alright, so first thing, we got to get the slack taken out. And we're going to set our 0. After you've bent a few tubes, you'll start figuring out how much overbend you'll need. Those are things you just have to go through. So I know that on 1.5 inch diameter tubing, 1/8 wall, it's about 3 degrees. But if you want to check it, get your handy Harbor Freight protractor. Now I'm using the strap, but you'll find that it's very close. I'm at 89.8 degrees with the tension off of this thing. Try and get this so you can see. So we had our 4-inch mark here. We marked every inch, so the die stops right here. So you can say we use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe 8.25 inches of tubing. So we know that for a piece of 1.5 inch, when you got to bend 90, you've got, I'm going to call it 8.25 inches of tube that you need just to make that bend. So if you're doing cage work, you're going to need a lot of 45s, maybe some 30s. You can get a rough idea off of this. Now if you mark this every 10 degrees, it'll also tell you how much tubing you use per 10 degrees, but it's a lot of work. Make you 1 or 2 standards out of this. You don't need to do it out of DOM. You can make it out of ERW. It's so much cheaper. Find out how much material you need, make you a couple standards so that when you're bending your cage, you don't come up short. You can always trim it off a little bit. Alright, so I purposely didn't go all the way, and I made a cut here kind of at the tangency point of the bend. So let me show you why we're doing that. Alright, so it works out whenever you're trying to figure out where your next tube's going to go. You can have some hold it, or you can clamp it in place, either way. So that's the other reason behind these standards, is you can put these in place, then use this slot to hold your tape to go to your next location. Alright, so that's a pretty easy standard to make. You can lay out your inches, you bend it, it lets you know how many inches of material you need. Now, you might be able to put your tape in there, and you get fairly close, but this is easy. And then if you put this up wherever you want to put a piece in, You set this in, and that little cut that we made, well, that allows you to take off that little edge, right? And you can do this with the cutoff wheel just as easy. Just make a little cut, your tape sits in there, and then you can go measure to whatever else you're wanting to go measure to. You make 2 or 3 of these, and that's pretty much all you're going to need for about all your bends. So make a 90, make a 45, probably a 30. And if you're not trying to calculate it out, it almost always works out. You're going to be short. So make you a standard, put your little cut so you can do some measuring. So please remember to subscribe to the channel, check out our channel memberships and our Patreon, especially if you like stuff like this. And I'll see you here for some stuff on this bender that we built. See you in that video.